It's 5:32, so we'll call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Katrina Kindle. Peggy Patton. Here. Ashley Withers.
Here.
Tony Allegretti.
Present. I believe we have a quorum. There's 4 members, 3 are present. I believe we can declare that, and we can move forward. We'll move to section B, it's approval of the agenda. Are there any additions? I guess we can add an announcement to. Regarding. Can we add an announcement regarding Ms. Withers? Okay. We'll put that under H3 then, regarding resignation of Ashley Withers from the board. And we'll leave some room for a small speech if you'd like.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Yeah.
I believe you have to.
We might have to vote on that.
Yeah.
Can we vote by assertion or by acclamation is what I meant to say. I keep wanting to say ascension. It's Catholic school won't get out of my head. By acclamation, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. That motion carries. We'll add that to H3. That's all I have. So at that point, I guess we'll vote to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's move on to C, approval of the minutes. This is from meeting November 6th. There was a link in the agenda. Any discussion on the minutes from the previous meeting?
Nope.
Well, I was wondering if the one thing I was hoping we could add to it is, there's a piece about that we approved adding to the number of meetings we would hold each year, but there was no language around why we suggested increasing the number of meetings, and I just think would be helpful to have in the record. And in my notes, I indicated that we agreed to increase our frequency of meetings to provide more time to address one of the elements of the ordinance that we has gotten short shrift in recent years, namely providing a systematic means by which to achieve continuous improvement in police-community interactions. So basically, as I recall our discussion, we wanted to add some meetings so that we would have more intentional time to talk about how we can provide a more regular platform for community engagement.
Was that under?
In the minutes,
Right. I'm just looking for the.
it says on number 2 under unfinished business.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, right. I'm sorry. There
Yeah. It just says potential meeting topics as a key reason, and if, that's fine too, but like I said, in my recollection, we actually had a specific meeting topic that was outlined in the ordinance that we just haven't had time really to take up.
So can we amend, or do we have to postpone the approval then to amend the minutes?
Or can we approve it as amended?
Approve it as amended?
Yes, you can go ahead and approve the minutes with the understanding that that change will be made in the official copy.
Yeah, if that's okay with you two. I mean, you may have other recollections of why we wanted more meeting minutes, more meetings, but that was my.
Yeah, I can move to approve the meeting minutes from the November 6, 2024 meeting with the understanding that the official minutes will reflect language surrounding the reason why we had added additional meetings in order to discuss additional ordinance requirements. Mm-hmm. It's very long.
Yeah. And ma'am, I'll ask you to restate that piece one more time.
Yeah, we wanted to have more meetings to allow us to address a portion of the ordinance that's gotten short shrift, and that is, and this is in quotes from the ordinance, provide a systematic means by which to achieve continuous improvement in police-community interactions. And that's under Section 1920A in the ordinance.
Yeah, we can.
Thank you.
Ashley's already motioned. I'll second the motion to amend. And you can vote by acclamation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries, so we'll amend the motion, or the meeting minutes from November to reflect that addition under E2. Okay, let's move then to, sorry, my agenda is frozen.
Public input's next.
Okay.
I don't think, unless you have a statement, sir.
One second here. Okay, there we go. Public input, we don't have any public input, so we will move on to E, unfinished business. This is the E1, the annual report. Carla, do you have comment on that?
Only that we need to get back focused
Yes.
on it and get it moving because we are moving into year 6.
Okay, there was a copy that was sent around, or was,
There is a copy in the
or it's on the portal? Okay,
and we did get the new portal, but I believe it's easier, you received the link, and it should be easier to access the portal information at this time.
okay,
All the information is in there. It is filed in the same manner as to which it was filed in the old portal version. And that annual report is in there, and it is waiting for each of the members to add their information to it. And I believe Ms. Patton added some of her information. I haven't put that in there yet
Okay.
because I was waiting for everything else to make sure everything jived.
Gotcha.
But I do have your information, but we're waiting for the others.
Okay.
okay. All right, we will review that and get that updated so that that can be submitted. Any other discussion on E1? Okay. All right, we'll move on to E2, which is the TASER review for 2021 and 2022. I believe that's why Sergeant Cervantes is here to present on the TASER review.
You guys like an introduction first? This is my first meeting. So
Sure.
Sure.
Yes.
Help you guys.
Yeah.
My name is Mike Cervantes. I've been with the city of Urbana since 2006. Prior to that, I was in the military. I served 5 years active duty, deployed.
Excuse me, Lieutenant, is your microphone on?
Oh, maybe not. It's God. Yeah. I know, it comes out, there's no, it's like the Wizard of Oz behind the, I should check.
Yep.
Check, check. All right. Okay. I have to say that all over again? All right. I appreciate it. My name is Mike Cervantes. I'm a lieutenant with the Urbana Police Department. I've been employed with Urbana since 2006. Prior to that, I was in the military from 2001 to 2006. I deployed during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Since my time at Urbana PD, I've served in several different roles, including street crimes unit detective, general detective, sergeant, a canine handler, and now I'm in the role of lieutenant of patrol. Prior to that, I was in the lieutenant of investigations. As far as my education goes, I have an associate's degree in applied science. I have a bachelor's degree in general studies and a master's degree in law enforcement and public safety leadership. I think those are the highlights. Do you guys have any questions for me initially? Okay. Well, thank you for having me here. I was given this responsibility after Deputy Chief Smizer was promoted to Deputy Chief. So again, this is my first meeting. If there's questions or you have any suggestions about the order in which things are going, I got a brief overview from Deputy Chief Smizer. I'll go right into it unless you guys have questions.
Lieutenant, can you describe your TASER training, just for the record, since you're presenting on that?
I don't have any.
Okay. You haven't received any of the TASER training for the office or for the department?
No. I'm sorry, as a,
Not
I
to
am aware
present
of
here,
the-
but you carry one on when
I
you're
do
on
not.
patrol? Oh, okay.
no, because of the CIT requirement, I wasn't a CIT officer. That takes, a significant amount of time, and with resources, it's difficult to get people into that role. And then the different roles that I played, or, have been in the department, it didn't always require I was on the street with a TASER, so I don't carry one. It's not that I didn't want to, I just didn't have the pre-qualifications to go to the school, or to get CIT in order to go to the TASER school.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else? All right, so from my understanding, I'm just supposed to kind of go over a summary of the incident, and then I'll show you guys the video. So the first incident is from 2021. It took place on December 18th at about 1 in the morning in an apartment complex in Urbana. Officers were dispatched for a removed subject that ultimately turned into a home invasion call. The synopsis is the arrestee and the victim previously lived together and have children in common. The arrestee has previous domestic situations against the victim, and then a docket number is included. And as a result, ended their dating relationship and living arrangement over a year ago. The arrestee went to the victim's home uninvited and attempted to get in through windows when the victim refused to open the door, causing minor damage to the screens. The victim contacted the police while attempting to arrest the subject. The arrestee resisted officers and a TASER was discharged. The TASER did not attach to the arrestee properly, and the arrestee then ran from officers. Officers were able to apprehend the arrestee shortly thereafter. After medical evaluation, the arrestee was taken to jail.
Sorry, Lieutenant, where is this coming from, a police report, or is this a summation of that?
Yes,
Okay.
play the video. So this is the view from the sergeant on scene, who was actually the one that deployed the TASER. She was in speaking with the victim at the time, as officers were advised that there was cause to arrest the arrestee. That's when she's getting the radio call to go out and assist those officers to effect the arrest.
I'll be right back. Are you complying, or am I going to have to tase you? I don't do anything. Put your hands behind your back.
The individual in this case was arrested for home invasion, resisting, obstructing a police officer. He was ultimately sentenced to 48 months probation, 180 days in jail. There was a petition to revoke in June of 2023, and a warrant was issued for his arrest. Any questions regarding this incident?
So Lieutenant, what happens, I was confused as how he got loose, because he had two officers that were restraining him. What do the reports say as far as what happened? It just seems like he walked away. It was hard, you couldn't see. It was hard to tell what happened.
I'll read you the exact. This is from the sergeant's report.
And the sergeant is the one we're watching her
Yep.
video through.
She observed the suspect in this case pulling away, not listening to commands as officers. Were using strong arm control in an attempt to pull the individual's arms behind his back and put him in handcuffs. The individual was actively resisting, and she could see that both officers in this case struggling as the individual pulled his arms to the front of his body. So if you watch the video, some of the things that I have noticed.
Are you lying, or am I going to have to tase you?
I didn't do anything.
Put your hands behind your back.
So if you
I didn't do anything.
Put your hand.
pay attention to the arrestee's feet, that's one portion of it, and his left arm.
Behind your back. Put your.
Sorry. I think to answer your question in part is that he was tensing up and pulling away. So what you can't see is that it requires the officer to take a pair of handcuffs, place them on him, and then we have to double lock those. In order to do that safely, we got to get the individual in a cuffing position, and the handcuffs are only so long. So having their wrists close to one another is important. So even an individual who's tensing up, tightening, pulling away, as appears to be consistent with the video, appears that they had a hard time actually getting him into custody, into handcuffs. At this point, he was already under arrest. He was not free to leave. They were arresting him.
I'm going to tase you. Put your hands behind your back.
See his left arm?
Behind your back.
Did you see the crook of his left arm come up? And now he's leaning forward at the waist. See his feet?
No. Are you going to continue to resist?
So in short, they just didn't have positive control of him to the point where they could actually secure him in handcuffs. At that point, he was able to slip away.
Yeah.
And used his momentum and his body weight to lunge forward.
Had they just detained him there, or what?
Say again?
Because the sergeant arrived after, I don't know how long of a period of time.
So what was your initial question? I'm sorry.
Like, how do we know how long it took the sergeant to get on the scene before was he already detained by the time she arrived, or had they just found him?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
I know that they were going hands-on, meaning at that point they were physically affecting the arrest.
Sure.
And they had called for her assistance to come out at that point. So how long they had been talking prior to that, I don't know. There was an investigation prior to that where the sergeant was talking to the victim, ascertaining, what actually occurred and a little bit of the history behind the individual that was ultimately arrested and the victim in this case.
Mm-hmm. Was he treated at the hospital, or were there any reports of?
Well, it says, after medical evaluation, the arrestee was taken to jail. So the taser probes didn't actually penetrate. There was one probe that got stuck in his shirt, and that was removed on scene.
Okay.
Was he on scene when officers arrived? He
Yes.
was. So he didn't like leave and come back. He was there when they got there.
Yep. Matched the description, including clothing description of what the victim indicated he was wearing.
Did he, so if he was on scene, was he trying to leave at some point? Or was it only when they tried to detain him that he was resisting at that point?
I don't know the answers to that question.
Okay.
Attempting home invasion when she called the. I don't know why my thing goes on and off.
Yeah, I can't speak to what his intentions were. I know that when officers arrived on scene, they encountered him in the area of the call for service. He matched the descriptions. They stopped him, and the sergeant that was investigating and speaking with the victim determined that there was probable cause to make an arrest. She relayed that information to the other officers on scene, at which point, this is an assumption because I wasn't there, that they went hands-on. That's typically how we would do it. There was two, they had mass, so they went to take him into custody, and that's when they were having difficulties with that and called for another officer. And then as the sergeant was responding, she called for additional officers.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Yep. If there's nothing else on that one, we'll go to the next one. This incident is from 2022. September of 2022, it occurred at 9:50 p.m. It is in a residential neighborhood. I'll read you the synopsis first. The arrestee and the victim are married. This is another domestic situation. The arrestee caused a visible injury to the victim. The arrestee then made threats to shoot police officers during the investigation. The arrestee then armed himself with a knife and charged at police with the weapon. A taser was deployed on the arrestee and he was taken into custody. An officer was injured during the apprehension. Ultimately, the individual in this case, the arrestee, was charged with aggravated assault. Sorry, not charged. He was arrested for aggravated assault, resisting and obstructing a police officer, domestic battery, and he was ultimately sentenced to probation for this violation.
What were the officer's injuries?
One of the officers, I believe, sustained a cut to his hand when struggling with the individual on the ground.
Is it from the knife or?
No, I believe it was from actually the taser barb itself, from the taser that was, or I'm sorry, the barb that was making contact with the subject. So the first, I have two videos in this one. The first one is from one of the responding officers. Initially, the officer made contact with the victim at a secondary location. The victim told the officers what had taken place. The suspect was in the residence. The officers approached the residence and attempted to make contact with the suspect, and that's where you guys are going to hear what he says and what took place, and see what took place. Did you guys hear that? Get away from my door before I shoot you. I'll play it again.
Was a firearm found?
Nope.
We'll take more officers here if we're having a male threaten to shoot us.
So in this case, the officers back up to get a position of cover using the vehicle to stop any potential rounds if this guy has it. What you don't know is on the other side, or you can't see from this video, is on the other side an officer has a better view, and he calls out to the officer that we're watching his body camera. The other officer calls out that he has a knife.
Is this is the suspect's home or residence?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Where we retreated to cover. Drop the knife! Drop it now! Drop the knife now! Drop the knife! Get on the ground now!
So he had the knife in his hand and he threw it.
So Lieutenant, so the officer we're watching, is that a firearm or is that a taser?
That's a firearm.
Okay.
On the ground now! Get on the ground! Get on the ground right now! Get on the ground! 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 We can have some fun. Hold on. I better watch our distance. We need everyone in.
I don't know if you caught that, but he says you better watch your distance. You better watch y'all distance. And then he points at one officer, says, "I'm going to get you." Taking off a shirt is typical and a pre-fight indicator. Obviously, he's animated. His arms are flailing.
Are there drugs and alcohol involved?
The victim in this case indicated that the offender, had been drinking all day.
Was that informed? Were the officers who responded made aware of that?
I don't know that.
Back up. Get on the ground now.
So at this point, given his actions, this meets already the aggravated assault. There's probable cause not only based on the injuries that were observed in the statement, but in this case, his approach, his demeanor are all consistent with pre-fight indicators, and the aggravated assault portion of it is when somebody feels as though that they would be battered, so hands would be put on them. Just him walking up with his fist in that manner, that is, he would be able to be arrested at that point.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground now. Okay. I ain't going. Get on the ground right now. We'll talk about it in just a second. Just get on the ground. Yes, you are. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Let's get it over with. Come on. Get on the ground right now. What are you doing? Get it over with. Hey,
So this is a perfect example, based on the last video that we watched, what's required for handcuffing. There's fine motor skills that are required, and the cuffs, the individual's wrists have to be close enough for the cuffs to actually be effective. So I think that plays into it, and seeing this could potentially answer some of those questions about how difficult it is to actually get somebody's hands in the correct cuffing position in order to get them on safely.
Is there a reason why you don't use a like the zip tie cuffs that you see, where you got like the bigger circles and then it's easier to get hands in and pull tight as opposed to using the metal ones? And then maybe initially, or
We
then
have those, but they are more geared towards,
see those with mass arrests.
yes. And
But I just
and
mean
right.
like those are easier to get on people than these metal ones, right?
Not always. It depends on the individual and the circumstances. In these cases, the metal ones provide much more, they're much more secure. So they're more sturdy. They're, more difficult to break. That for safety purposes and anything else, we would go with the best product that we could. And in my opinion, that would be handcuffs, not flex cuffs.
Right, but I mean, start with the flex cuffs and then put the handcuffs on after, is what I mean.
No, we don't carry flex cuffs. We carry the either hinged or chained handcuffs, because those are the most secure.
Okay.
And you see the officer's hand there?
Yeah. So was he hit from behind?
Yeah, you're about to see the other video from the sergeant that
Oh,
arrived
okay.
on scene with the taser. So this is from the sergeant who's arriving on scene, the one that actually deploys the taser, as the officers were calling out what you heard them, or at least the one officer was calling out what you heard him calling out before, about officers expediting because he was actively trying to fight.
Lieutenant, before the sergeant gets there, did any of I think there were 3 officers there, did any of them have a taser?
I don't believe so, but I can't be certain on that one. I believe that if they would have, it would have been out, displayed, and deployed likely by that point.
Stay down. You would do it again. I would do it again. Turn to your back. Hey, that was nice. I got this one. That was nice. That was hanging like a good thing. Like. This ain't no joke. Yeah.
So another thing I think is important to note is the arrestee's statements after the fact. He says, "That was nice. The taser isn't a joke. I'm not going to lie, that hurt." By deploying the taser, I mean, in this incident, immediately stopped the threat, went down to the ground, and then after the 5-second shock was administered, they were able to get him in custody. And based on his statements, I think it's reasonable to conclude by him saying that hurt, he didn't want it again. So the sergeant on scene indicated he would do it again. He ended up not doing it again because the individual complied.
Does the sergeant explain why he didn't announce the taser before he deployed it in his reports?
I have a question that's similar to that. I wanted to know, as looking at this, did the person, when the officer with the taser, when he was approaching, did the person lunge at them? I wasn't
Yes.
sure if he lunged, but it looked like he lunged at them.
He did. And so in that case, we want to strive to announce taser not only to the individual, but also to the other officers that are in the area. In this case, he had to act immediately. So he ran up from behind him, and you can see, we can watch that part again. I'll slow it down for you. So I don't know if the sergeant thought he was going to use his taser for tactical reasons, obviously, with the individual having his back to the sergeant that's approaching from behind. That's a better position for the sergeant to be in. So if he was going to run up and affect a takedown, a physical takedown, that would have been better when the individual turned around and squared up. And you can even see it in the other video. I'll show you that. It has a better view of it. The deployment of the taser for tactical purposes in that point, I believe is appropriate, given the totality of the circumstances.
The knife now, right? Get up, now. Get on the ground.
So you see, he's approaching him, fists up, steps towards him. Sergeant deploys the taser as he's stepping back, continues to give verbal commands.
Well, the sergeant runs up from behind him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does the sergeant say why he ran up and then fired without announcing? Because it seems like they had him contained in.
If he did, I don't know the answer to that question. I was reading the initial officer's report regarding the taser deployment and what was seen.
Right. I mean, I don't think there's a report that the policy doesn't require them to explain their actions. It just detail what they did. I'm just curious if there was anything written in his report.
I'm reading off the responding officer, the officer that actually took the report, not
Right,
that.
yeah, not the sergeant.
And that's not indicated in that initial report. I'm drawing an inference based on my experience. From a tactical position, if he was running up from behind him and wasn't sure what he was going to do at that point, if he was going to effect a takedown, I wouldn't have announced myself either. The police are in full uniform, the sirens, the lights, they're coming up. I mean, any reasonable person, I think, would know that the police are there, that these are the police. This individual has already exhibited behavior that's
Sure.
violent.
So you think the sergeant was going to take down, which doesn't involve the taser? That's, you're talking about like physically grabbing him or something.
That's a possibility.
Okay. And then he changed his mind mid.
When the individual turns around and notices that he's coming, that could be reasonable also.
Okay.
Either way, either one of those decisions made by the sergeant would have been appropriate given the individual's behavior at that point, and the goal ultimately be to take him into custody with as little resistance as possible.
I appreciate these calls are made in a matter of milliseconds. You know, we're stopping and starting a video that looks like things occurred over a long period of time or many, many minutes, but the decision, right.
And that's what we look at with use of force. The courts have been pretty clear on that. As far as looking at it through a reasonable officer's eyes at what they see at that moment and that time, not through the luxury of hindsight being 20/20.
Right. Thank you.
Can you refresh my memory about, on average, how many officers are on duty at one time that have a taser?
It's not consistent.
Okay.
It-
Is it
it-
usually
it
at
all
least
depends.
one?
Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's none, sometimes it's two.
Okay. So in this situation, if that officer, that sergeant had been busy on another call or there wasn't a taser, how would they have proceeded in this without?
Likely brute force or using OC spray, maybe a baton. It just depends. A lot of times, no, not a lot of times. I would say 99% of the times, the individual's actions will dictate what we do. But at the end of the day, we needed to take the individual into custody. Of course, we would have liked for that to happen by him listening to verbal commands. It was obvious in this situation that he wasn't. Multiple times, officers told him to get on the ground. Had he got on the ground, we'd have been able to effect the arrest at that point. Later on, the individual did indicate that he just wanted to take a shot from an officer. He wanted an officer to shoot him, basically.
Bold choice.
And we didn't. The fact that he came out with a knife, and I think had he continued to move towards the officer. Deadly force would have been justified in that case. However, he listened to commands, dropped the knife, and this was resolved with less than lethal force, which is optimal, and that's what we would prefer. Officer sustaining a minor injury to his hand. It's much more preferable than the individual getting shot or an officer sustaining broken bones or significant serious damage in a fight with this individual who was clearly ready to fight.
Any other questions, discussion?
No.
If
Okay.
you have nothing else for me, this is all I had tonight, and I look forward to working with you guys in the future, and congratulations. Look forward to everybody else. I have a question about how do you determine who's going to be the next person on CPRB, or is there
They
is it
have
just
to
whoever
apply,
applies?
and
So
then
you
they
need
interview with the
applications.
mayor and
Okay.
Carla and Tony.
And a member of the police force
Yeah,
is also
usually.
on the interview
Maybe
team.
you, who knows?
Yeah,
Maybe you'll get
yeah. We've
All
been-
right, well-
We have 4 vacancies now, so we've been trying to get
being
more
said on
people.
my interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, excellent. If there's no more questions for
No,
me.
I just have a general question. I know from when we attended the TASER training, but that was over a year ago now, we were told the number of times that TASERs are displayed, which was a fairly large number, but the number of times it was actually used, deployed, was very, very small. Do you happen to know those numbers?
I do not off the top
Okay.
of my head, and if you gave me a time frame, I can absolutely get you those numbers for the next presentation.
If you could, yeah, that would be, yeah, I think it'd be super helpful.
What's the time frame that you're looking at?
Our next-
In the last year, last 2 years?
It would be good to have a trend, if it's easy to do the last 2.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Last 2 or even longer, if that's, I know that the reporting was changed recently regarding whether there was an announcement
Yeah.
of the TASER. And then, so I don't know when that data was added. That was done by your predecessor.
Right, Lieutenant Smyser,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, that's right. I think that was happening at the day we were having our training. They were just implementing that new data field.
Yeah.
So I will look back for the next presentation, displays
Maybe
versus.
5 years if possible.
I will do my best, but I'll get you guys some numbers regardless. So displays versus deployments, 5 years is preferable.
And you can forward that ahead of the meeting if you have it.
Yeah, you're
It
right.
doesn't need to be
Okay.
Because
a separate presentation if you just have the
Right,
data.
that way you
would
don't
be
have to
useful.
come, but, I mean, unless you're going to be here anyway, but if you're not, that would be really helpful.
Sure.
Well, we appreciate it, because this is for the public. I mean, it's not just us 3 that get to, the public tunes into these meetings, and they appreciate that as well.
Yep.
All right.
Great.
So if I forward it to you, you make sure to get, okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
your time.
Lieutenant. We appreciate your time, too.
So I know the board doesn't determine whether or not individual incidents are within policy or with not. That's not in our purview under the ordinance. We are supposed to discuss whether or not we think that the policy should change. I mean, my general take on the policy is I would like to see it tightened up on when they announce the use of the TASER. I know they're tracking that when it is announced and when it is deployed, because whether or not it would have been used in the second case, or whether or not the individual would have responded once they said, that we have a TASER, it's hard to predict if that would have happened. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have, but that's my main issue with the policy, is that it is open. It gives a lot of room to, justify whatever use of force was done. So that's, but.
By not announcing it, you're saying that you would.
I mean, that would be
rather
one thing I would like to see, is that there be some requirement, if practicable, or if it is not impossible to announce, that they announced the taser. You know, I can appreciate circumstances where that may not be possible, but, you know, having it written in the policy and have some explanation as to why actions were taken, I think is also useful. We don't see that in these reports. The use of force reports are, there isn't explanation of, you know, especially around the taser. I understand there's a lot involved when they're writing these reports, but, you know, for our purposes to review and develop a better policy, some of those questions would be nice. You know, did this sergeant in the second one, did he change his course of action halfway through? You know, possibly.
Yeah.
I can understand why the subject would be startled and maybe charge at someone who was running up from behind him, not knowing who it was. You know, if there was alcohol involved, you know, that, you know, maybe that would have, you know, maybe a slow walk up and an announce of the taser, maybe he would have complied. I don't know. Those are, I mean, those are generally my thoughts on most of these, because the tasers, as much as they are not as lethal as a firearm, they are just less lethal. I don't think they are 100% safe, and I don't think anyone would claim that they aren't. So, because they can harm people too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the majority of videos I've reviewed, they have announced it, and there have been a couple times, this one and then another that I can think of. But I think, and it seemed to me the reason we were given was because things happened so quickly. But I agree, it seems to me it would be an important aspect of the person who deployed the taser to indicate why they didn't announce it. If for no other reason, it would be a professional development area for supervisors to say, well, I don't agree that precluded you from announcing it. You know, I mean, I don't see it being abused, but I've only been on this for 3 years and probably have seen, I don't know, maybe 10 tasers in that time. But if there were a pattern of someone maybe relying on the reasoning that I had to make a split-second decision, you know, that might be an opportunity for a little bit more training on, you know, well, actually, that wasn't the case. And it would certainly be good for us and the public to know that.
Right.
I don't think that's a burdensome requirement to say if you don't deploy a taser, I mean, if you don't announce your deployment,
Explain why.
yeah, even if it's just a sentence.
Yeah.
So, yes, I would agree.
No, for
I was going to just suggest that some of the tasers, all these scenes have been some years old, and the board has been giving some feedback through this process, and maybe things will have been updated, especially since you already know the paperwork has been updated. Maybe there's some training that could have been updated too, and there may be some consultation between the lieutenant and the deputy chief who's been there on this process for you longer, just to maybe say how other things have developed through the training as well.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about as you were watching this, I was watching with you, was that the person arriving on scene would not have heard the dialogue and not known whether the knife had been dropped, not know necessarily that he had removed his shirt or whether there was a weapon in his clothing, in his pants, things like that. So when there's that threat and he's trying to rescue his colleagues, perhaps,
Yeah.
you just never know how those last-minute decisions might be made based on less information in the car than was actually there on foot.
I think that tends to kind of be my issue with having so few tasers on shifts, is that officer's trying to get there with it and is missing that piece, some of that pieces of information that might have been more helpful.
Right.
Yeah, I was surprised that the lieutenant isn't certified in the use of the taser, and that there's a shift where they don't have it, and that seems like that might be a gap that needs to be, should be filled. Because as much as they are something I don't think anyone wants to use, it's a good bridge between that and, we had the first officer who was displaying his firearm, and, that, that's the last thing we want to use. And if
Yeah.
I'm surprised that there isn't one on every shift, which,
Yeah, and I think, from the data that you mentioned, that saying them showing it for the most part is enough for people to kind
compliance.
of to de-escalate the situation. So it is, it's just something I wish that we could prioritize to get more on shifts, especially because we have so few officers on shift anyways. And while Urbana's not huge, there could be calls on opposite ends of town. And, it kind of just puts everybody's safety at a little bit more higher risk, both, victims and arrestees and officers, so.
And I don't remember if it was Deputy Chief Smizer or the orientation that the three of us had.
Yeah.
But they were saying it's a budget issue and that maybe this group could potentially say to the council, this is a budget issue that we have an opinion about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right, Tom, you were in our training, and we asked that question. They said, they're very expensive, and they don't share them. Not everyone's trained in it, but they don't share them. I think he gave some reasons why, but,
I think from what I remember is the barbs have coded numbers or something that kind of would indicate who shot it, and if you have people, they're trading them off, and
that's right, so it's
it had to do with kind of accountability for the equipment,
Right.
which is understandable. I think, everybody has an assigned firearm and all those things. I
Right.
think that makes sense, but getting more on each shift
Yeah,
would
right.
be
I think so,
potentially
too.
beneficial.
I
I think so,
believe
too.
Lieutenant Cervantes said that it's hard to get into the training,
Mm-hmm.
that there's criteria to get into the training. He said that's why he wasn't able to get
Yeah.
into it.
It's
That's
time
right.
consuming and expensive,
Right,
and
right.
And
I
also a
think-
cost.
And a cost.
and a
yeah.
cost, yeah.
I
Well,
think
also-
prioritizing training is not a bad thing.
Right, no, that's right. But it has been proven to be a deterrent, for sure. I mean, just the display of it. If you never had to use it, that would be great.
And especially, I think there's concern for the high number of domestic cases that officers respond to in Urbana. I know that's been a discussion, and so it can be hard to just de-escalate those situations. And, simply just showing a taser would be enough in those situations, then.
well, if we have the data showing that they announced and then there was no discharge, that might be enough.
I think that would be really helpful
That can show
information.
that these, just the threat is enough to de-escalate, and that it's going to involve less people getting hurt, including cutting your hand on the barbs themselves.
I'd also be really interested, and I should have suggested this before I left, but when there's showing versus discharge, what was the type of call that was it a domestic? Was it a, disorderly, what was the nature of the call? And I don't know, just be curious to know kind of if there's any correlation between different situations.
Oh, I see.
Requiring taser use,
Yeah,
you mean?
does that make sense?
We could ask
I'm sure
Lieutenant
they can
Cervantes.
figure
if
that
we
Yeah,
could
just
ask
kind of
that.
if we could categorize, was this a
Nature.
domestic, was this a
Nature of the call.
robbery, whatever it may be, what was the nature of the call in general? Not that I'll be here, but, might be helpful for you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is any more discussion on the taser?
No, sir.
Okay, reviewing the ordinance, I know let's see.
On- Put your back over here.
We don't have any of the accompanying documents that Lieutenant Cervantes was reading from.
That information is in the.
Oh, it is in the portal, okay, okay. Okay,
Which documentation were you
just,
referring?
well, there's a taser report,
uh-huh.
all of that's in there,
Gotcha, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no other discussion, then we'll move on to new business. That's F1, recruitment of new members. I'm not aware of any new applicants at this point in time.
Is that true?
We haven't had any new applicants, and we haven't had opportunity to do any recruitment. But lo and behold, right around the corner, there are opportunities for recruitment for members to participate in. It's a part of my officer's report. I can do that now, or I can wait until we get to that section.
Let's just move right into your
Okay.
officer's report, Carla.
Okay. There was one citizen complaint submitted during the quarter, and it was concluded with counseling of the officer. Mr. Allegretti and I met with the mayor, and we've been working to complete appeal write-ups and annual report. The annual report draft is in the portal. Each member needs to contribute, and we've already discussed that. The office responded to 5 Freedom of Information Act requests for complaint information, which we provided. The OHRE is currently planning the City of Urbana's Juneteenth celebration, which will include educational programs, raising of the flag ceremony, and a food truck day lunch option. There is opportunity to recruit before the ceremony in the city building lobby on June 12, 2025. The OHRE participated in the Mayor's Recognition Program at Urbana High School. At the Urbana High School, students were recognized for their volunteer hours, and the students completed the equivalent of 3 full years of hours. Opportunities to participate in recruitment activities, they're just around the corner. The Market on the Square will soon begin signups for tables. The first date available is Saturday, May 3rd, from 8:30 to noon, and repeating every Saturday through October 25th, 2025. And based on availability, we will schedule some Saturdays for recruitment. And we would appreciate for the members, if you would provide your availability, then we will schedule those Saturdays around your availability, so you could come in, and I'll be there, or Tom will be there. And if you could come and just help us with that recruitment. We want to focus on CPRB because we're losing Ashley, and we're down to 3 members, and we need to ensure that we will always be able to meet quorum. So we're going to be actively recruiting for CPRB. We did in the past, but now we're going to make it our main focus. Jetty Roads Day is June 28th, 2025, 11:30 to 3:30 p.m. Again, either Tom or myself or both of us will be there. Neighborhood Nights on Wednesdays beginning June 4 through July 30, 2025, from 6 to 8 p.m. Tom has taken the lead with the Wednesday night neighborhood nights at the parks, and so he will be there, and those are opportunities to be with him to actively recruit for membership. And that is the end of my report.
So did you say any Saturday, farm market at the square is one that you could potentially set up? Or you'll be there every Saturday, and if we'll be there on a particular Saturday, then we'll make that focus be a recruitment for CPRB?
I won't be there every Saturday.
Yeah, okay, I didn't think so. That's a lot of Saturdays.
That's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's all my Saturdays.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Only time I have off. No, but what I'm saying is we will coordinate the Saturdays that you guys are available.
Okay.
And we will ensure, some of them will be there
Okay.
without you, but we want to ensure that the ones that you're able to be there, that we get those scheduled.
Okay. And
Does
that,
the city have a table every weekend just for different services or programs, or is it just
No.
as you guys set up?
No,
Okay.
we
I
don't
didn't know if
have
they had one every.
we don't have a standing table. It's if a program or one of the offices would like to have a display or have a table, then they will schedule that, but it's not an automatic.
okay. And did you say the Juneteenth celebration on the 12th is also an opportunity where you'll have a table set up?
Like we did last year, we had tables out in the lobby, and different organizations were able to staff that table. And so we are looking this year to have an opportunity for our boards that we staff
Okay.
to have a table to do some recruitment, because we have community members coming in, and they may not know that they could
Sure.
volunteer for one of our boards, and so we're going to
Yeah.
have that opportunity.
So is that in the afternoon on the June 12th, or in the evening, or?
The 12th is a Thursday, and the doors will be open at 9:30 in the morning. The activity in this chamber starts at noon, goes for about 45 minutes or so, and then outside again for the flag raising. So the tables would really be going from 9:30 until just before the program at noon.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay.
I will plan to put all these things that Carla has said onto a calendar and email you
That
that,
would be
so you
great.
have a picture in front of you about all the dates she's mentioned.
Okay,
And he also is taking the lead on the Juneteenth celebration, so
Okay.
he will be able to share, because we'll have additional days of activity, and so he'll be able to share all of that with you.
okay. But let you know the Saturdays that we could be available for Market at the Square.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Because that's easy
The,
to,
the Saturdays or the potential Wednesdays, and then that one Thursday as well. And then also we'll probably have a table Tuesday of the 17th of June when the food trucks are across the street.
oh, okay. Good,
Great.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Carla. Thank you, Tom. Okay, move to H2. So our next meeting is scheduled for June 25th, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. In council chambers. Then we'll move to H3. Ashley Withers is resigning from the board. She gave plenty of notice for this. We all will miss her. We thank her for her service. She was there with us through a number of long evenings. She's a very dedicated public servant, and she's moving on, or continuing that. She's not off the hook with that in any respect. And we wish her well at the Park District. So thank you, Ashley.
Thank you so much. I look forward to my continued service through the Park Board of Commissioners, so see you all there.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
We were in the same class, as it were,
Yes.
because we started at the same time, so I really enjoyed working with you.
I would just like to say it's been a joy working with you.
Thank you. I'm saying that.
You brought different perspectives, you brought fresh, different ideas and different ways of seeing the information, and I just really appreciated that.
Thank you.
I know you thought you were challenged, but it wasn't a challenge. I every time I get an opportunity to learn, I take it, and so I appreciate all that you brought to the CPRB, and we wish you well in your next endeavor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been an honor to serve on this board, and there's only so much time in my day and weeks, and I wish I could continue, but you know, my two small babies at home need me too, so I'll be there with them, and
No.
Park District will take up a lot of time as well. So
You're entitled, absolutely.
Yep, thank you. So.
All right, and with that, we'll move to point I for adjournment. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Can I
or-
just ask one question?
Sure.
I wasn't sure where to insert this, but given the problems, at least that I've been having with the new webmail security features, you know, it's now working, but last week it wasn't, and then the week before that it was, and for several weeks before that it wasn't. And I've been talking to people at IT, and they helped me, but then for some unknown reason, it stopped working 3 days ago. Today it was working. But given all that, and I know we can't, my understanding is we can no longer have webmail forwarded to our personal email. You know, for the first 2 years I was on the board, that was forwarded, so if webmail somehow stopped working, we at least got important notices. But my understanding is that's no longer an option.
I believe so.
Okay.
Because they want us to utilize the city emails. I know we had some issues, some technical issues over the weekend, so that might be why
Maybe
we're
that's,
having some issues, but all of those, we got an all clear today that those
Okay.
issues have been rectified.
well, my question is where do you post the agenda? Because I know there must be a website for the public to see the agenda and other important notices like a cancellation of a meeting for whatever reason. Where would that be posted? Because I thought, you know, because it has happened to me that it just stops working and I can't reach, you know, I can't find important information, but I thought I could look at those places.
On the new city website,
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if I know off the top of my head the exact path to get there. But there is a page with all meetings that the public can see the schedule of upcoming meetings and past meetings, depending on how they click on that part of it. And there it has all the minutes that have been published,
If you go-
as
this
well
is
as all of the
the
agenda.
very first
Oh,
page on
Ashley can
mobile
show you
has
right now.
the
That's very
meetings
helpful,
and
too.
agendas.
Okay,
And then it should
Okay.
have
So what happens
place
for
the
me is
board
when I am
agendas.
okay,
sending those minutes to, sending the agenda to you,
yeah.
then it automatically is posted the same day. When I start sending packets out, I send it to a particular link that automatically posts it for the public as well. So once you start using that, I'm sure you can save it on your desktop and
Okay.
go back to it if need be.
And if you had to cancel a meeting due to lack of quorum or something else, that notice would also appear on that same website?
Yes, we try to do all of that.
Okay.
Obviously, 48 hours in advance to,
Yeah.
when we know the agenda, and then it has to be as soon as possible if the meeting is canceled.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, and I'll,
And we can go on online and we can post the path to, so you're able to get to the information. We can give you the path.
that'd be good, because I don't use my phone for that kind of thing, and I don't know if, do you
We'll
have an
send you the-
iPhone?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, see, iPhones and Androids are also different, which was one of the problems with the IT desk. Yeah, yeah.
We'll send you the, we'll
That would
send
be
you the
great.
path.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then with that, we'll move to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn the meeting at 6:39 PM.
Need a
I'll
second?
second that, I'll second that.
I think we can vote by, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Tony, thank you,